Hey, it's Midnight Raven, and welcome to my first podcast episode. My podcast is going to be called It's Not All Doom and Gloom, and the first episode is getting to know the Midnight Raven. What better way than starting small and just introducing myself to maybe people that have never listened to a podcast before, have never watched my channel before, or don't even know who the Midnight Raven is. And you should know who the Midnight Raven is. I've been on YouTube for 6 years. I've recently been monetized for the second time. And today we're going to do some get to know me questions so that you can get to know me and I can get to know all of you by maybe you leaving more questions in the comments of this video. So this is the first podcast. It's not all doom and gloom. So we're going to do 10 get to know me questions. I'm aiming for around 20-25 minutes for the first podcast. I don't know what the average podcast is, but we're just going to be winging it. So I've gone to a website and it says the first question is, what are your hobbies? Now, obviously, YouTube is a passion of mine. I also have a passion for things like serial killer documentaries, diamond art, researching crimes, missing people. I have an interesting amount of hobbies. I like to collect ducks. I used to collect fridge magnets. I have a thing for having probably the world's biggest candle collection. I've got so many candles at one point I could have lit my house up all year without having to buy a candle or turn electric on. That's just crazy, right? So there's the first question. The next question is kind of along the same lines as the first one. Do you collect anything? The answer to that is obviously yes. I collect ducks. I've only recently started collecting ducks of all shapes and sizes. I also collect seaside stuff. Currently, I have like seaside pictures, creatures, that kind of thing. I used to collect magnets as well. Every time I go to a seaside town, I'd pick a magnet up of where I've been. I have a tendency to collect mugs, but they have to be specific to my taste. Either have a goth theme, a black and white theme, or be something different and unique. I do like the quirkier the better. I do have a fairly big serial killer book collection, which always freaks people when they come over. I do like to keep them out to like deter people from touching them. I don't like books being touched. They are kind of close to my heart because they are my collection. Things else I collect. I don't collect a huge amount of stuff. But what I do collect is special to me, like the serial killer stuff, like the ducks. They all have sentimental meaning to me. And they do have a good place in my heart when it comes to my collections. I don't just start a collection willy-nilly. Generally, a collection has a interest or a memory from my childhood. The ducks do. I used to take my kids to the pond when they were little. And then I'm obviously going to take my grandchild to the pond. I even walked home today and walked past the ducks. It's become a tradition, should we say. So the third question, what are you passionate about? Obviously, I'm passionate about my kids. Obviously, I have 3 children, if you didn't know, all boys. I dedicated my life to my kids, should you say. I'm passionate about work. I put my all into work. Anyone will tell you that I will work and work until I'm blue in the face and can't work no more. I'm also passionate just in general. If I put my all into something, you are getting 100% of Raven's attention, her effort, her dedication to getting a job done. I am there 100%. There's no ifs or no buts. It's either all or nothing when it comes to me. That's my mentality of how I work. If I'm going to do a job, it's going to be done properly. It's going to be done well. It's going to be done to my standard, which sometimes maybe is a little high. I do put like myself on a pedestal of how I want to achieve stuff, which can be negative sometimes for myself to push myself that far. So let's go for the next one. What is your most prized possession? My most prized possession. So I don't collect a lot, but like I said, what I do collect is like really special to me. My most prized possession would probably be, that's a difficult one. Because people are going to say that I'm going to guess it's got something to do with serial killers or it's got something to do with being goth. I would probably say right now, my most prized possession would be the Edgar Allan Poe framed picture that I have. I was given that at Christmas, and I love Edgar Allan Poe. Obviously, Quote the Raven Nevermore is what I built my channel around. It's what my cat was named, Midnight. Raven was my goth name when I joined the goth community. And then I put my cat's name and Raven together. And then the whole Quote the Raven Nevermore became a thing for me many, many, many years ago, back when I was a teenager. And I was obsessed with ravens and crows and macabre things and dark things, and probably things that most people wouldn't be interested in, like serial killers, like the death penalty, World War II, the Holocaust, an interest in the human psyche. This is a very deep conversation for another time. But yeah, I would say my Edgar Allan Poe framed picture, you will have seen it in vlogs sometimes. It's on my wall, it's framed, and it's the entire Quote the Raven Nevermore poem. And it's what I built my channel around to some extent. Okay, next question. What is your greatest accomplishment of your life? My greatest accomplishment in my life would be bringing up 3 boys. Obviously, I have 3 children. I have my eldest, who is called Kieran. He is now having his own child. They are due to have a girl in August. I have a middle child called Lewis. He has autism, and he is a very, very well-educated, smart boy. He is 19 and will be 20 this year. And then I have Talon, which is a very unusual name. Everyone tells me that. And Talon is currently now 15, and he has a passion for doing things like go-karting, and he's very outdoorsy, kind of like his dad. And that would be my greatest achievement, would be bringing up 3 boys. Children aren't easy to bring up. Don't let anybody tell you that having a child is easy, but bringing up 3 boys, 2 of them I brought up really close in age. As you can see, I've got a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old. They were very close in age, very, very close. So I had 2 boys very quick, simultaneously, in fact. And then I had a 5-year gap before I had another child, probably because I needed a break. But I have 3 boys, and I'm now going to have a grandchild, which is going to be a girl. So I'll have my hands full. Obviously, my 2 elder children are out there in the world with their own lives, and my youngest is practically, I would say, a self-sufficient child now. He, socializes with his mates. He's studying for his GCSEs. He's getting to the point where he is practically self-sufficient as well. So, aspirations and goals that they have now will be their greatest accomplishments. Obviously, mine is bringing up 3 well-educated, polite, friendly, high-achieving boys. Next, question 6. What is on your bucket list? Okay, so let's go for 3 bucket list items. My top 3 bucket lists would be, the first one is to go to Paris. Paris has always been my dream since I was probably around 8 years old. I have longed to go to Paris. I want to see the Eiffel Tower. I know it's very touristy. I would also love to be in Paris when Fashion Week is on, because I love French couture clothes. And I just love the whole French life. The sitting by a bistro in the middle of the afternoon, having a glass of wine by the river, the ambiance of France itself. It seems like a very chilled place to live and visit. And I don't want to do all the touristy stuff, like I don't want to be too touristy. I don't want to stick out like a sore thumb when I go to Paris and they're like, oh, it's just another tourist. But it's been my dream for many, many years. Another bucket list item would be, I would love to own a camper van and travel the country when I retire. I'd love to go up and down the UK in a camper van and vlog my adventures in a camper van and become a tourist camper / vlogger, going up and down the country, visiting museums, going on walks, and become a travel blogger. That would be a dream once I don't have the responsibility of children anymore. Obviously, my youngest is still only 15. But once I get a bit older, once I retire, I would spend my retirement with a little VW camper van going up and down the country, vlogging and traveling. And I would love to find a partner that would want to do the same thing. And the third thing on my bucket list. So we're going to Paris, then having a VW camper van. And I guess the third one on my bucket list, I don't know. Three's a hard thing to choose because there's things you say, oh, I'd love to do that sometime, but it's always finding the time to do it. Third thing on my bucket list. I guess if I really had a third thing on my bucket list, that after doing the traveling in the camper van, I would spend my golden years living in Whitby. Obviously it's the goth mecca of the UK. Whitby's just a really chilled seaside town, and they obviously have the goth events twice a year. So I think I would probably be drawn to living in Whitby once I retired, after I'd done the vlogging and the YouTubing, and then when I wanted to settle down, I think I would try to live in Whitby, which is obviously a very expensive area, living in Whitby. Next one. What is your favorite recent memory? What's your favorite recent memory? I guess my most favorite recent memory would be going on holiday. We went to Haven after the pandemic had finished. About 6 months after the pandemic had finished, we went on holiday to Haven. It was only a 4-day holiday. We all couldn't get enough time to have a week off. I could, but my son was restricted to just having the 4 days off. And we had a wonderful time. We had dinner with my sister. She came down. I vlogged while I was away. And it gave me some real perspective on leaving the house after being trapped in the house with the pandemic for like 2-3 years. You then appreciate the outside world more. Like having a walk on the beach, feeling that breeze, smelling that sea air. It felt like being in another world compared to being locked in your house for 2 to 3 years. It wasn't like having freedom, but you suddenly felt a bit of normality. And I had a whale of a time. I've got some videos. They're actually on YouTube if you haven't seen them. There's plenty of videos showing me away on holiday, showing the caravan. It showed the park where we were on. So what is your best childhood memory? My best childhood memory. So I had a really rough childhood. I'm not going to lie. My childhood was rough, probably from the day I was born. and it didn't get better as I got older. But my best childhood memory would probably be having Pippi as a dog. Now, Pippi was a fairly unloved dog. He wasn't a rescue dog per se. A friend of my dad's had this dog, and his friend was going to prison. And Pippi was the dog that this guy had, and he was going to prison, and he asked my dad to look after the dog temporarily while he was in prison. But we got so attached to Pippi that when the guy came out of prison, we ended up keeping Pippi, and we had 15 years with Pippi. I think by the end of it, he lasted, I think it was 13, 14, 15 years. He was a very, very traumatized dog. He was brought up in a bit of a rough house before he came to ours. But we had miles of open fields. We lived near a farm. We had the fresh air. We weren't in the city or anything like that. We lived in a village. And he had a wonderful life up until him passing away. So it'd be having a dog for my childhood. Question 9, what's your favorite holiday? So I've been on many holidays over the years. I've spent a good 30 years of my life going to Great Yarmouth every year, whether it was staying in a caravan park, staying in a B&B, staying in a hotel. I've also traveled up and down the country. I've traveled up the country. I've stayed in Edinburgh on holiday. I've been to Ayr. I've been to Yorkshire. I've been all over. I've holidayed in Wales. I haven't holidayed in Ireland, so I've done most of the UK. I wouldn't mind holidaying somewhere down south, something like Southend or Brighton, and go to sort of the south of the country, or head towards something like Cornwall. I've never been that part of the country. But my favorite holiday would be having to go to Yarmouth every year. I've even took my kids to Yarmouth on holiday every year, and now my kids are going on holiday to Yarmouth and taking themselves. And then my son wants to take his child to Yarmouth eventually when it's born, and have their first holiday in Yarmouth, because it's a family tradition. My nan used to go on holiday to Yarmouth. My mum took us. And then I've took my kids, and now my kids are going to take their own. So it's a history of going to Yarmouth on holiday that has stuck with our family since my nan. My nan used to go 2 weeks of the year. We used to go a week of the year with my mum and my nan. And then I used to take my kids for a week's holiday each year to Yarmouth. And now my son's going on holiday to Yarmouth for a week. And then he said about taking their child to Yarmouth for the first time. So it goes through the family, and then hopefully their grandchild will take their children, and it goes down the line. How cool would that be? Okay, and the last question for this video, we are going to do some get to know me more questions later in the series. Who knows you best? I'd like to say I know myself best, but then that's obviously playing favorites. But who knows you best? I would say my eldest probably knows me a good deal, or I would say my ex Marcus knows me quite well. If I'm having a bad day or things aren't going well, between the two of them, they know me well enough to know when I'm struggling, when I'm happy, when I need a hug, when I need help. And I can always rely on my ex and my eldest to help me. And they know me best, I would say, to a point. I mean, I would say I know myself better than anyone. I know when something is too much, too hard, too difficult, upsetting. They do say no one knows you better than yourself, and I'd like to think that is true, that if I knew something was wrong, something was bothering me, I would know. But then it's also good to know that other people get you as well. Like if you were having a bad time, you were having a bad day, or things just weren't going right, those people in your life would be able to say, look, things are going to be fine, don't worry. And they'd have what I want to call your best interests at heart, because they do know you. I just feel sometimes you override that with, well, I know myself better kind of thing. You've always got to be ahead of people in your own mind, that no one can know me better than myself. And I think sometimes that's not true. I think some people can know you better because they see everything. And maybe because it's things that you see, other people see it differently, and you have blinkers on sometimes. But I hope you enjoyed this mini, it's not all doom and gloom podcast number 1, getting to know the Midnight Raven. I am going to answer some other questions in the next episode. We're going to do 10 more questions. And for the first couple of podcasts, we're just going to get to know me. And if you have any questions that you want to ask me and feature in a future podcast, just put them in the comments of this video, and I will see if I can make a video where I answer all of your questions. It can be about anything. The crazier questions, the better, but obviously keep it YouTube friendly. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, Getting to Know the Midnight Raven, first episode. And the podcast is called It's Not All Doom and Gloom. If you want to like and subscribe for more podcasts, that would be amazing. Let me know what you thought of this podcast. And hopefully I will do some in the future. So thank you for listening to this. I'm going to hopefully do it so that I load podcasts every Sunday. So stay tuned for next week's podcast. And I will see you all very soon. Have a lovely Sunday. And I will